don't know about you, but I seldom, when I'm walking through a museum or gallery, spend much time thinking about the flaws that might be hiding in the pieces they're painting.
Yeah, same here. But when your collection contains works that are hundreds or even thousands of years old, sometimes a little repair work needs to be done.
As a matter of fact, the conservation department at the Nelson-Atkins Museum recently faced a pretty interesting challenge.
Restoration expert Scott Heffley took on the task of making a certain old master's painting look a little fresher before it went to Spain for an exhibition celebrating the 400th anniversary of El Greco's death.
KCPT's Mike Murphy spent hours and hours watching Scott's painstaking touch on the Penitent Magdalene.
And producer Ashley Holcroft has shortened it for your viewing pleasures.
The painting entered the collection in 1930. 1930 is the first year that the Nelson was collecting artwork. They had people over in Europe buying art, and they number the paintings according to when they enter the collection. So this one, purchased in 1930, was the 35th work of art that was put into Nelson-Atkins Museum's collection. So it was an important work to be added. They had a laundry list, and the laundry list was a good example of all the masters. So they wanted a Rembrandt, they fell into a Caravaggio, they wanted a Titian, they wanted a Bronzino, they wanted representations of all of these important artists. So when this came along as the 35th artwork, and it was a very strong El Greco, it was an easy choice. It treats a religious subject with clarity and simplicity, and it really allows you to focus on her moment of seeing Christ.
The Penitent Magdalene is not only a jewel of the Nelson-Atkins collection, it's internationally recognized as one of the finest examples of El Greco's work. And because of that, it was cordially invited to participate in an exhibition that commemorated the 400th anniversary of the master's death in his adopted hometown of Toledo, Spain. But before she could make the 4,600-mile journey, Scott had to embark on one of the most challenging restorations of his career.
We're now looking at the painting with ultraviolet light, a black light. And what that does is it shows up the previous restoration that's on the painting will fluoresce a dark color. And so it makes it easier for us to see it. When you look at her arm, it should be a very smooth arm, and it's not. All of these dark areas are areas of repaint. And when I clean the painting, all of that old restoration will come off, and I'll be able to see the actual damage that's on the painting. Then what I'll do is I'll rebuild that with my own paints so that her flesh will look smooth and continuous. Now, I did find when I did my test cleanings that underneath the varnish and underneath the repaint, there's something else on the surface that gets gummy. And I have to sort of swell it with the solvent, and I have to kind of smear it off and kind of pick it off. I don't know what that is. This may be my most complicated treatment to date.
El Greco's first brushstroke on this canvas was in 1580, and since then it has endured countless attempts at preservation, and often with materials that did more harm than good.
They didn't have the chemicals that we have, and so to dissolve this discoloration and this varnish, they sometimes even spread lye on the painting, really caustic material, and even put it in the sun to have that bake and dissolve off this discoloration. Then they wipe that off. And when you see damage to a masterpiece, it is painful. When you're restoring something, you and it are one. I mean, because you're responsible for bringing it back to its best appearance, the way that El Greco painted it in this case.
After removing the last remnant of past restorations, Scott's task is to now bridge the islands of original paint.
The next step is for me to apply the first coat of varnish. And the reason I do that is to saturate the colors. I use a natural resin varnish that has the most saturating capabilities. The same kind of varnish that El Greco might have used, but with modern additions to keep it from discoloring over time. And then I'll begin the in-painting. If you look closely, there are lots of dark dots, and that's where original paint's been skinned off of the actual top of the canvas weave. And I'll mix my paints, and I'll put my dot of white right where that dot of black is. And I do that over every single little dot, even the tiny ones, mixing the colors to match the surrounding area at each point where I put the in-painting. And then, his very quick and lucid brushwork will be apparent. I'll be doing that in very good natural light. Depending if it's a cloudy day, I can't work. It has to be good lighting conditions for me to see these colors. And the human eye is the only thing that can match these colors, because sometimes the colors are layers of transparent over opaque. Those kinds of issues can't be perceived by a computer. The human eye is just more capable at matching the way that the artist intended it to look. It's really a thrill to bring it back. It looks so bad now, but I see only promise in this painting. When it's wet up, I can see the genius in different places that are fractured and damaged and compromised. But I know through the in-painting that I'll be able to unify his work and bring back that genius. We aim for everything to be reversible. And the paints that I use, anyone could come in 100 years from now using a very weak solvent and take that off. It's very easy for them to get back to the original now that I've brought it to this point. It takes quite a bit of patience, but when you're in painting and the light is good and you're matching the colors, you often get lost in it. It does require patience, but you just are doing it, and time goes by quickly. Your mind can wander, and you're just entranced with it.
As Scott's final brushstrokes cleave with El Greco's original intention, his endeavor that has taken over a year to complete is sealed with coats blacker and wheeled off for a homecoming centuries in the making.
The focus of this exhibition in Toledo was understanding work by El Greco and his hand, and work by his workshop, work by followers of El Greco, and even further down the line. And so they were very interested in our Penitent Magdalene. They used this as a real center point in the show, because this is clearly completely by El Greco's hand. And then they had other Penitent Magdalenes that were further down the line, and visitors to the show could see the differences themselves and learn about El Greco's technique.
It's really part of our mission to be able to share our collection, not just with our visitors here in Kansas City or even within the United States, but to share our collection really with a worldwide audience. We knew that it needed treatment for quite some time, so for us to be able to do this conservation work, to know that when we sent the painting there, that it's the best example that it can possibly be of our painting is really important and really special to us.
After months abroad, the Penitent Magdalene returned home to once again adorn the Nelson-Atkins hallowed walls. And after a thorough inspection, she joined one of Scott's past restorations, the Trinitarian Friar, marking the first time in museum history that the two El Grecos have hung side by side.
I just love it, and I have such a kinship with it now. I feel like it's my painting. I mean, I don't own it, but I own a sort of an area of it. I share a bond. And so when I come up to it in the gallery, we're friends and we're back together again, and that's really kind of a thrill. And since I've been here a long time and have restored many of our really great paintings, I've got a lot of friends here.